from Europe to Asia, from the Christian world to the Muslim world, few names carry the power to unite cultures, continents, and centuries like Mary. After the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, stories about his life and about his mother spread rapidly across the ancient world. But they spread by word of mouth. Over decades, those accounts shifted, details blurred, traditions formed, and slowly, different beliefs about Mary's death began to take root. Some Christians have long believed she experienced a peaceful sleep, her body untouched by decay before being taken into heaven. Others insist she never truly died at all, that she was assumed directly into paradise. A few traditions place her final days far from Jerusalem, even suggesting distant lands like India. For centuries, each region held tightly to its version of the story. Every church, every community, every generation preserved what they believed to be true. But now, something has changed. Scientists have reportedly examined a burial site long believed to be connected to Mary, a tomb sealed and protected for generations. What they documented inside is forcing many to reconsider assumptions that have stood for nearly 2,000 years. Was she laid to rest there? Did she rise? Or has history told us only part of the story? Hit like and subscribe. Stay with us as we uncover what may finally answer one of Christianity's greatest mysteries. The tomb in the Kidron Valley. Just outside the old walls of Jerusalem, down a quiet slope between ancient olive trees and weathered stone paths, lies one of the most debated burial sites in Christian history. Near the Garden of Gethsemane and the Church of All Nations stands a dimly lit underground church built over a tomb that many Eastern Christians believe once held the body of Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ. For centuries, this place has drawn pilgrims from every corner of the world. They descend the long stone staircase, candles in hand, whispering prayers in dozens of languages. Tradition says this is where Mary's earthly life came to an end. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. When the tomb was examined and opened in earlier centuries, there were no bones, no remains, no physical trace of a body ever decaying there. The burial chamber was empty. That single detail has fueled debate for generations. Some Christians see the empty tomb as powerful confirmation of what they already believe, that Mary did not remain in the grave. In Catholic teaching, this belief is known as the Assumption, that she was taken up to heaven, body and soul. Others, especially in Eastern Christianity, use a different word, dormition, meaning falling asleep. In their tradition, Mary did die, but her body did not stay in the tomb. They believe she was raised and then taken into heaven. At first glance, those ideas may sound almost identical, but the details matter. In Catholic tradition, the Church does not officially define whether Mary died before being taken up. The focus is on the result. She was assumed into heaven in a glorified state. This teaching was formally declared in 1950 by Pope Pius XII in a document called Munificentissimus Deus. For Catholics, this became a binding doctrine, one of the central teachings about Mary. Eastern Orthodox Christians, however, hold tightly to the image of her peaceful death, surrounded by the apostles. According to their tradition, 3 days after her burial, her tomb was opened, and it was empty. They see this as a parallel to Christ's resurrection, though not identical to it. And then there are the older stories, the ones that make this even more fascinating. By the 6th and 7th centuries, new accounts began circulating. One of the most popular involves the Apostle Thomas. According to this tradition, Thomas was not present when Mary died. When he arrived later and asked to see her one last time, the tomb was opened again. Inside, there was nothing but burial cloth. Some versions add a dramatic moment. Mary drops her belt from heaven as a sign to Thomas that she has been taken up. This image appears again and again in medieval artwork. It shaped how entire generations imagined her final moments. But here's the surprising part. The New Testament never describes how Mary's life ended. There is no biblical account of her death, no first-century record of her burial. Early Christian writers were strangely silent on the details. In the 4th century, a bishop named Epiphanius of Salamis openly admitted he could not find reliable information about what happened to her. He listed several opinions circulating at the time. Maybe she died peacefully. Maybe she was martyred. Maybe she never died at all. Even then, Christians disagreed. Later writings tried to fill in the gaps. Texts like Liber Requii Mariae, the Book of Mary's Repose, appeared in the 2nd or 3rd century. These were not included in the Bible and contain details that vary widely. Over time, more accounts emerged, each adding new elements. Some described miraculous gatherings of apostles from distant lands. Others emphasized heavenly visions and angelic processions. Modern scholars have noticed something important. These stories don't all come from one original source. They seem to have developed gradually, shaped by different communities and theological ideas. Even scholars who believe there may be a historical core admit that the fully developed doctrine of the Assumption appeared much later than the apostolic era. By the 5th century, celebrations honoring Mary's falling asleep were already being observed in parts of the Eastern Christian world. In the Eastern Roman Empire, the feast became officially recognized. By the 8th century, belief in her bodily being taken into heaven was widespread across both East and West. Over time, the language shifted in the Western Church from Dormition to Assumption. The feast grew in importance. Eventually, it was placed alongside major Christian celebrations in significance. Then, in 1950, after consulting bishops worldwide and stating that he believed the Holy Spirit was guiding the decision, Pope Pius XII made it official Catholic dogma. Yet even today, there is still quiet discussion beneath the surface. Did she physically die? Was her passing like Christ's, or completely unique? Was the empty tomb in the Kidron Valley truly hers? Or is it one of several competing traditions? Because here's another layer. Some Christians believe her final days were spent not in Jerusalem, but elsewhere, including Ephesus in modern-day Turkey. Multiple locations claim connection to her last moments. So when people stand today inside that ancient tomb in the Kidron Valley, they are not just looking at stone walls. They are standing at the crossroads of centuries of belief, storytelling, theology, devotion, and debate. An empty chamber, no physical proof, only tradition. And that silence, that absence, may be the loudest part of the story. More beliefs of Mary's ascension into heaven. Some Catholics believe that Mary died before she was taken up to heaven, but they also believe that she was brought back to life by a miracle before being assumed. This belief is called the mortalist interpretation. There are also some Catholics who believe that Mary was taken up to heaven without dying first, which is called the immortalist interpretation. Others believe that she died and was then taken up to heaven. The last two beliefs are allowed in the Catholic Church, and Eastern Catholics celebrate the feast day as the Dormition. But many signs in Catholic traditions, such as prayers, stories, and art, suggest that the mortalist interpretation is more widely accepted. Remember that Saint Pope John Paul II publicly expressed the mortalist belief. The Catholic Church celebrates the Feast of the Assumption, on August 15th, while the Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholic churches celebrate the Dormition of the Mother of God on the same date. Before the feast, Eastern Christians fast for 14 days to honor Mary's life and death. They believe that Mary died a natural death, but that her soul was taken up by Christ immediately. They also believe that her body was resurrected after her death and taken up into heaven, where she awaits the general resurrection of all believers. Protestant beliefs about Mary's Assumption vary, with some groups closer to Catholicism believing in a bodily assumption, while most Protestants do not. In the Anglican tradition, there is also a range of beliefs, with some accepting the Assumption, others rejecting it, and some considering it a matter of indifference. Although the doctrine was largely absent from Anglican worship for many years, it experienced a resurgence in the 20th century among Anglo-Catholic groups who celebrated it under different names. Today, different Anglican churches celebrate a feast day on August 15th, but with different names and focuses. The Church of England honors the Blessed Virgin Mary without specifying the Assumption, while the Scottish Episcopal Church simply calls it Mary the Virgin. In the United States, the Episcopal Church celebrates Saint Mary the Virgin, Mother of our Lord Jesus Christ, while other provinces, like the Anglican Church of Canada, mark the day as the falling asleep of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which is another way of referring to the Dormition. For hundreds of years, the tomb of Jesus Christ in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem has been covered with a layer of marble. But in October 2016, a team of scientists finally got to see what was underneath. They were working on a project to fix up the tomb in the church, and they were excited to learn more about this important place. When the scientists removed the marble, they found a lot of extra material underneath. They were surprised by how much was there. Now they get to study the original rock that Jesus' body was laid on, according to Christian belief. That is not all. According to the Christian faith, Jesus Christ was killed by the Romans and then placed in a special spot in a cave. This spot was like a shelf carved out of the rock of the cave. This event happened either in the year 30 or 33. Christians believe that Jesus came back to life after he died, and when some women went to visit his body a few days later, they found that it was gone. The shelf where Jesus was placed is now inside a small building called the edicule, which is like a little house. This building was rebuilt between 1808 and 1810, after it was damaged in a fire. Since 2017, a team of scientists from Greece has been working to fix up the edicule and the tomb inside it. They are being led by a woman named Professor Antonia Moropoulou, who is in charge of the project. Scientists are very excited because they finally get to see and study a very important place that has been hidden under a thick layer of marble for so long. By studying the original rock of the tomb, scientists can learn more about what the tomb looked like a long time ago and how it has changed over time. They can also learn about how people have been honoring and respecting this place for a very long time. The scientists are using special tools and techniques to study the tomb and take detailed pictures and notes. This will allow people from all over the world to see and learn about the tomb as if they were actually there. The leader of the project, Professor Antonia Moropoulou, says that they are at a very important moment in their work and that the special methods they have used to study the tomb will help everyone learn more about this unique and special place. The church closed early. So many people who were visiting from other places were standing outside, confused, because they could not get in. Inside the church, there were lots of different people, like workers wearing yellow hats, monks wearing brown robes, priests wearing black hats, and others wearing special hoods. They were all gathered around the special tomb called the edicule, trying to get a look inside. The tomb is usually dimly lit by candles, but this time it was brightly lit, showing off details that are usually hard to see. The special tomb is surrounded by a fancy building that was built in the 1800s. Right now, that building is covered in beams and safety tape. Inside the tomb, the special slab of marble that covers the important bench had been pulled away from the wall. This slab is about as big as a door and is made of white marble with a smooth finish. Underneath the marble slab, there was a stone surface that was a grey-beige color. When someone asked what it was, the person in charge of taking care of the tomb said they were not sure yet, but it was time to use special tools to figure it out. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is also called the Church of the Resurrection, is a very important place for many different groups of Christians. 6 groups take care of the church, and 3 of them, the Greek Orthodox Church, the Roman Catholic Church, and the Armenian Orthodox Church, are in charge of making big decisions. The other 3 groups, the Coptic, Ethiopian Orthodox, and Syriac communities, also have a say in what happens at the church. The church has some special areas that all the groups use together, and one of those areas is the tomb where Jesus is said to have been buried. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre and another church called Mary's Tomb, which was built around the same time in the 4th century AD, are visited by many people every year. The special building that houses Mary's tomb has been destroyed and rebuilt many times over the years. The building that stands today was constructed by a group of Franciscan friars in the 14th century. The Greek Orthodox Church is the main caretaker of the building, but they share some responsibilities with other Christian groups. To reach Mary's tomb, visitors must go down a long staircase that is over 1,000 years old. On the way down, they pass by 2 smaller chapels, one dedicated to Mary's husband Joseph, and another dedicated to her parents. When they reach the tomb, they have to duck down to enter the small space inside. They are surrounded by beautiful religious art and icons from the Middle Ages. The atmosphere is peaceful and reverent as pilgrims come to pray and light candles. The many places that claimed Mary's final resting place. Long before modern investigations focused attention on Jerusalem, the question of where Mary spent her last days had already traveled across continents. Entire regions built their identity around the belief that she had lived and died among them. And each tradition came with its own story to explain how she got there. In Central Asia, some Turkmen traditions claim her tomb is in a city called Mary, once known as Mari. This belief is often connected to early Nestorian Christianity, which spread far beyond the Roman Empire. Further west, certain Christian communities in northern Iraq have linked her burial to areas near Erbil and even to traditions associated with Mosul. In South Asia, the Ahmadiyya movement teaches that Mary's tomb lies in Muri, Pakistan, at a site known locally as Maimari da Astan. According to this view, she traveled east later in life and was buried there. That immediately raises a huge question. How would she have journeyed so far? To answer that, we need to go back to one of the most dramatic legends, the story involving the Apostle Thomas. According to medieval tradition, Thomas traveled to India to preach. In some versions of the story, Mary later joined him there. When she died, Thomas was supposedly the only apostle who witnessed her being taken into heaven. The others, gathered elsewhere, did not see it happen. When the tomb was opened, only her burial cloth, and in some accounts, her belt remained. This image became extremely popular in medieval and Renaissance art. Painters loved the dramatic moment of Thomas holding the belt as proof of what he had seen. The story added mystery, tension, and a sense of divine confirmation. But India is not the only alternate location. Another powerful tradition places Mary in Ephesus, in what is now modern-day Turkey. According to this belief, she left Jerusalem with the Apostle John. In the Gospel of John, Jesus Christ entrusts his mother to John's care before his crucifixion. After persecution intensified in Jerusalem, including the execution of early Christian leaders, John is believed to have moved to Asia Minor. Many Christians assume Mary went with him. Two historical details strengthened this tradition. First, the tomb traditionally identified as John's is in Ephesus. Second, one of the earliest churches dedicated to Mary was built there. In the ancient church, buildings were typically dedicated to figures who had a direct connection to that location. That fact alone gave weight to the Ephesian claim. In 431 AD, the major church gathering, known as the Council of Ephesus, took place in Ephesus. Church leaders gathered to clarify teachings about Mary's role as the Mother of God. Some of the language from that period refers to Ephesus as the place associated with both John and Mary. Over generations, local villagers preserved oral traditions claiming she spent her final days there. Then, in the 19th century, something unexpected happened. A German nun named Anna Katharina Emmerich reported detailed visions describing a small stone house on a hillside near Ephesus where Mary supposedly lived at the end of her life. Emmerich had never traveled to Turkey, yet her descriptions were so specific that explorers decided to investigate. They found ruins matching her account, built on foundations dating back many centuries. The site was later restored, and in 1967, Pope Paul VI visited it, giving the location further recognition. Today, both Christians and Muslims visit the modest stone structure known as the House of Mary, especially on August 15th. Islam, too, holds Mary, known as Maryam, in extraordinary honor. She is one of the most respected women in the Quran. Islamic tradition includes the night journey of the Prophet Muhammad, during which he is said to have traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem and then ascended through the heavens. Some later accounts describe him encountering earlier prophets and righteous figures, including Mary. In certain retellings, her tomb is associated with Jerusalem, near the area of the Dome of the Rock. Other stories speak of a radiant light above her burial place. What makes all this remarkable is not just the number of locations. It's the devotion behind each claim. Entire communities built shrines, held pilgrimages, and passed down stories for generations, convinced that they were guarding the true memory of her final days. And regardless of geography, one date unites millions, August 15th. For Catholics, this day marks the Assumption, the belief that Mary was taken into heaven, body, and soul. For Eastern Orthodox Christians, it is the Feast of the Dormition, commemorating her falling asleep. Orthodox believers prepare with a 2-week fast, limiting certain foods as an act of reverence. Special liturgies, hymns, and processions fill churches with candlelight and incense. More than 30 countries observe August 15th as a public holiday. Nations such as France, Italy, Spain, Poland, and Portugal pause for religious celebrations and family gatherings. In Malta, fireworks light up the sky. In parts of Germany and Switzerland, businesses close. In Latin America and the Philippines, churches overflow with worshippers. Even in places where it is not a public holiday, The day remains deeply meaningful. Processions carry icons through city streets. Bells ring, families gather. For many believers, it is seen as Mary's heavenly birthday. So where was she truly buried? Turkmenistan, northern Iraq, Pakistan, Ephesus, Jerusalem. Each claim reflects faith, history, culture, and centuries of storytelling. The physical evidence is limited. The written records are late. The traditions sometimes contradict one another. Yet across continents and religions, one thing remains consistent. Mary's influence did not end with her earthly life. Whether in a tomb in Jerusalem, a hillside in Turkey, or a distant land along ancient trade routes, her story continues to move millions. And perhaps that enduring devotion, stretching from east to west, is the most powerful evidence of all. So, what do you think? Which tradition feels most convincing to you, Jerusalem, Ephesus, or one of the lesser-known locations? And do you personally celebrate the Assumption of the Virgin Mary on August 15th? We'd genuinely love to hear your perspective. Share your thoughts in the comments below and tell us what you've been taught or what you've discovered through your own research. If this video helped you see the story in a new way, make sure to like, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next deep dive.